Now, today marks World No Tobacco Day, and the World Health Organization reveals that tobacco kills no less than 8 million people each year. WHO said about 40% of tobacco victims die from lung diseases and about 1 million from second-hand smoke. More than 60,000 children, also under the age of 5 years, die of lower respiratory infections caused by second-hand smoke. And the WHO Director for Non-Communicable Diseases, Vinayak Prasad, said this in a briefing. He added that he issued a caveat on e-cigarettes, saying that there's no evidence proving that they are safer alternatives to cigarettes, warning that it normalizes smoking and also hooks young people.
So every year we know about 8 million people die from tobacco. That's the global figure, about 8 million. About 1 million of them die from secondhand smoke. Now, these figures have stayed constant for the last couple of years. But out of these 8 million, we have about 3.3 million, about 40% of these deaths due to lung diseases. Now, what are these lung diseases? Cancers, chronic respiratory diseases, and even tuberculosis. So these products are not smokeless. And these products are tobacco products. So there are two big things. One is these are tobacco products, and our recommendation as WHO is please regulate them as tobacco products. The claims that these are less harmful, we don't know. There's no evidence to demonstrate that. And therefore, we follow the precautionary principle. Take precautions, treat them as tobacco products, and regulate them the way that you regulate for other products. On the contrary, we are seeing that in countries that have been very liberal with electronic cigarettes, the use of ends is very common amongst youth, actually more than 2 times what conventional cigarettes is. So basically there's a perception that these are safe products, and it's actually hitting the market, and the group which is most vulnerable, children. Teenage children. So it's a problem which we are seeing in a number of countries now.
And still focusing on the World No Tobacco Day, joining us in our Lagos studio to discuss more on this day is Ehi Iden, the Chief Executive Officer of Occupational Health and Safety Managers. Good to have you join us, Ehi.
It's so good to be here.
Most definitely. Now, we have 8 million deaths attributed to direct tobacco use, and about 1.2 million as well from non-smokers being exposed to second-hand smoke. Now, today's celebrations and in activities of commemorating the day now, the focus is on tobacco and health, the lung health. Yeah. What does this mean today at a time in Nigeria where we still have high numbers of heavy smokers and it's just a casual activity?
Well, it's not really a casual activity because we have to keep creating the advocacy towards the ills that are present in tobacco use. We are in this state because government also hasn't been able to give us the requisite enabling laws to actually guide against regulation of tobacco. Until we unveil the ills that are involved in tobacco use as it pertains to lung, people don't know what they're doing. Though even those who know the ills that are involved by virtue of addiction can't really quit tobacco. So this day has been set aside to keep drumming the message home that tobacco is dangerous under any form of guise at which they're presented. But I'm happy that this year's team is focused on lung health because tobacco causes about 80% or 80 to 85% of the lung disease we have across of lung disease like cancer and
respiratory diseases.
So we need to start driving this message home because we don't want our people to die for issues that are actually preventable.
Okay, now let's also talk about the National Tobacco Control Act of 2015. Now, so many public officials, health officials, have called on President Muhammadu Buhari, especially as his second term begins, that he has to give priority to this.
He just has to, because the government is the custodian of public safety. And tobacco is one of such things that we must give attention to because people smoke recklessly. You have the second-hand smokers who have no business with tobacco, but because there are no regulatory provisions, anybody smoke wherever he or she likes, and somebody who have no issue with tobacco gets harmed. So we really need him to actually use his office to ensure that the lives of Nigerians are preserved by virtue of this law. We've been advocated for this for so long. But you realize when you create so much advocacy, present these laws, along the line, government just tweaks. And that's why we are also crying against the big tobacco companies' interference into our national governance. And that's what happens. They sponsor some legislators against this bill, and at the end of the day, you don't see, like you saw the last one that went through second reading. After second reading, disappeared from the House. So
exactly.
We just need Buhari to President Mohamed Buhari to please help us. We need this very bill to actually preserve the lives of our people, especially in the area of tobacco
And
exposure.
the International Assembly, some would say, took a right step in the right direction, looking at the draft of the national tobacco regulations. The Senate and the House of Representatives gave it a good nod. And now we have the 9th National Assembly. What do you expect now, steps to consolidate on that previous effort?
We just wanted to consolidate on that, looking at what was done in time past. And don't look at it from the perspective of what comes to the nation as revenue. What the nation spends in dealing with tobacco-related illnesses is more than what we get as revenue. And this is from the dimension we wanted to look at it. So we just wanted to look at what happened before in the last National Assembly and consolidate on that in ensuring that as this bill comes to you, look at it critically and look at how it benefits the nationality, the Nigerian population, and see what you can do about it. Because this is their responsibility. Because if there is no law to regulate this, there's nothing anybody can do. But we need enabling laws that come from them for people to actually act and do the needful. Okay,
now let's also talk about electronic cigarette consumption. Now, this poses almost twice as much a risk as the conventional smoking that we are known to have in the country. So now, so many youths are rather resorting to this under the guise that, well, it doesn't hold so much of health implications. What's your word to the youth to resort to?
I think that's just a level of ignorance that's actually fly across the country. There's no science to prove that the electronic tobacco is less harmful than the conventional tobacco. They are regulated as tobacco. Even the new one that's coming up called shisha is also as harmful as tobacco. So they should be treated as one. Anybody that comes under the guise that, oh, this is safer for me, you are just trading in an old trouble for a new one. So it's same thing. We advise our youth to please desist from tobacco. Say no tobacco is the way to go.
And you earlier touched on regulation. Now, when at this time, some have also called for additional taxes on cigarettes, for example, because they've said having that bar on the box of cigarettes saying that smokers are liable to die young has not necessarily done enough. So do you think adding additional excise tax rates would do any justice?
It will have been adopted by so many countries, and it's worked, because the more excise duties are added to tobacco importation, the more the price of tobacco goes up. So assuming a man who can purchase about 20 or 3 packets of tobacco in a month, and as the excise comes in and tobacco price goes up, he can't buy. This purchasing power towards tobacco reduces. And even some people who import, when they find out that the price have gone up, so they can't really import as much as they would have when it was on the realistic.
Addiction knows no price tag, you know.
It does, because if you don't have, you were taking about 20 sticks before, and now because you don't have the financial power to purchase 2 packs that you were taking before, you can reduce it about 1 pack. But that alone has done a great relief to your usage.
So now we know that we have no less than 1.1 billion smokers in the world. It's just talking personal now this time around. I have family members who are heavy smokers, and I'm sure you also have family members or friends who smoke.
Friends, not family members.
Friends also smoke. But what health tips do you think they can begin to adopt to address this addiction? Because they wouldn't necessarily want to believe it's an addiction. I earlier said they believe it's just a casual activity they like to indulge in.
That's a very emotional area you just touched, because most times I see people who smoke and they live in 2-3 rooms, and they smoke and the children are there. And even some parents who send their children to go buy cigarette for them. I want to use Advent to appeal to Nigerians or family members who smoke. The lungs of the kids that live with you are still very tender. Exposing them to tobacco smoke on a daily basis is not going to help them. You just complicate their problems.
And those that also consume this directly?
Yes, those that consume that because they
What's your word to them as well, just to stem this tide of addiction?
Well, for those that consume this directly, I know it's difficult to quit what you have done over the years. You need to have a counselor. You need to understand. You need to understand what this means to you as a human being. You have a family. You don't want to die because of tobacco and leave them behind.
Okay.
Life on its own has many breathtaking moments. Don't make tobacco one of such moments.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Ehi. And we've been talking to Ehi Iden, the Chief Executive Officer of Occupational Health and Safety Managers. All that conversation wraps up news across Nigeria. When we come back after the short break, we have plenty more reports from the rest of Africa. Stay with us.